I'm Francesca Maroney. Welcome. I'm a teacher at the Writers Studio, and I've been working with the writers you're going to hear from today to prepare for this reading. We're also happy you could join us. Thanks for being here. I'm going to just say a few quick words about the school, and then I'm going to have invite Phil to say a few words as well. For those of you who don't know, the Writers Studio has been around since 1987, founded by our very own Pulitzer Prize winning Philip Schultz. We conduct both in-person and online workshops where writers are given opportunity to practice their craft through Phil's proven method of persona writing. We have courses both online and in person, and we offer them in New York City, Tucson, San Francisco, and Rome. And we offer 6 and 8-week modules. So you can check out the school's website at www.writerstudio.com if you have questions or curiosities about the school, the program, the kind of work that we do. We offer at least 4 readings a year, including one that highlights students, one that highlights some of the teachers at the school, as well as other contemporary writers and poets publishing today. And I think with that, I would like to introduce Philip Schultz, our founder and director. Phil, take it away.
Hi, I just want to welcome everyone and tell you how wonderful this is to see all these people from all these wonderful places reading tonight. And that was all. I just hello and a big hug to everyone.
Great. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, then without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our first reader. Our first reader is Gil Hoy. Gil Hoy is a Best of the Net nominated Tucson, Arizona poet and fiction writer who has taken Writers Studio classes for the past 3 years. Gil is a semi-retired trial lawyer and attended the University of Virginia School of Law. His poetry and fiction have previously appeared in Third Wednesday, Flash Fiction Journal, Tipton Poetry Journal, Unlikely Stories Mark V, Chiron Review, the Galway Review, Right Hand Pointing, Rusty Truck, Mobius, the Journal of Social Change, the Penmen Review, Last Stanza Poetry Journal, Bewildering Stories, Literally Stories, the New Verse News, and elsewhere. We're thrilled to have him here today. Gil, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you so much, Phil and Francesca. It's great to be here from Tucson, Arizona. I'm going to read 3 poems today. They're all from Writers Studio classes. In fact, one of them was from the very first class that I took at the Writers Studio and continue to work on it for the past few years. The first one I'll read is called Acquiring Wealth, and it was published by the Tipton Poetry Journal. Thank you to the editors there. Acquiring Wealth. You'll need to own stocks. Look for stocks with good earnings potential and low price to earnings ratios. Cuba was first colonized by Spain. Its slave-based plantations produced sugarcane for economic growth. It was later under US influence until becoming a republic. Cuba's minimum monthly wage is 225 Cuban pesos, about $9 US. You'll need to own bonds. Choose bonds with high credit ratings. Diversify by picking bonds of different duration. Tanzania is the largest country in East Africa. Its minimum monthly wage is 40,000 Tanzanian shillings, about $17 US. Tanzania is a distribution center for men, women, and children exploited for forced labor and sex. Then there's commercial real estate and residential rental properties. Put little or no money down. Leverage is key. Mexico's daily minimum wage is 123 pesos, about $6 US. Anti-migrant policies and the militarization of the US-Mexico border have caused an increasing low wages labor force in northern Mexico border cities. Own precious metals for inflation protection and keep some of your assets in cash to ride out economic storms. Did you know the 15 wealthiest individuals in the world have more wealth than the poorest 85 countries combined? If you start early and invest wisely, you can be a millionaire when you're still in your 30s. Then you can buy a villa on the ocean in a poor country with 5 full-time servants. They can live in the guest house. Be sure to treat them kindly. Then the second poem I'd like to read is called My Old New Apartment, and it was published in the Penmen Review. I'm watching the snow fall through my kitchen window. Pine trees are crusted with snow. White shadowed in black, a squally wind is filled with snow. The phone rings. My sister Sally is calling. Mother passed away this morning. I'm sitting all alone in my apartment, unpacking boxes loaded with dishes to fill my cabinets. I'm told my apartment is 100 years old. Will I ever see Mother again? I'm thinking about those who lived here before me. Were they lawyers, doctors, professors, businessmen? Were they mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers? I don't know their names. I can't see their faces. Did they have families of their own? How many others have looked out this same window and watched the same snowfall? Cold, dark, and deep, white shadowed in black, a squally wind is filled with snow. I've seen it over and over again, the same snow through the same window, falling on the same frozen ground. How did it get so late so early? It's only October and it's already snowing steadily. It's only October and it's already snowing hard. Pine trees are crusted with snow. Cold, dark, and deep, a squally wind is filled with snow. And the third and last poem I'd like to read was from an exercise in the past craft class. And it's called, it was published in Mobius, the Journal of Social Change, and it's called a tidal wave poem. In my dream, the strong man threw my pages of poems into a wastebasket and told me not to write another poem about democracy. So I wrote a tidal wave poem instead. No more poems about human rights and fundamental freedoms, free and fair elections, independent branches of government, freedom of expression and press, constitutional guarantees of civilian authority. No more poems about democratic principles that fashioned my poems. They that turned chaos and madness into people power would no longer have permission to enter my poems. Instead, I wrote a tidal wave poem that wasn't a democracy poem or a democratic principles poem. No, this was a tidal wave poem about a tidal wave coming. Not an about democracy or about democratic principles type of poem. Not a poem about diversity and inclusion, one man, one vote, international law, or equal justice under the law. No, this poem was about a tidal wave so strong and so powerful, so potent and so heavy, it could destroy everything evil in its path. A tidal wave thousands of miles long, propelled by the strength of the sun, the moon, and the earth. A tidal wave so demanding, so dominant, that his eyes and his lungs looked drowned. A tidal wave that yelled, "Don't ever fuck with my country again." A tidal wave so powerful, so heavy and strong that yes, it deserves its own poem. Thank you, that's it. So the next reader is Amanda Chan, and Amanda is a fiction writer and product manager based in Brooklyn, New York. She has studied with the Writers Studio since 2024 and previously earned a BA in English Literature from Yale University. Amanda, please go ahead and unmute.
Thanks. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from what is perhaps a short story. Carol only became more radiant after the unexpected death of her husband 10 years into their marriage, which betrayed the truth of her during the obligatory period of mourning, that her numbness was giving way to hunger. The bones of her face were sublime, like jagged cliffs that rose and fell out of a misty voyage. Marriage had not been what she had hoped for. That period of her life was an incandescent smile that did not quite reach the eyes. While her late husband, Ben, found stillness in his daily laps at the pool, she had tried to wring some pleasure out of vodka so expensive that it felt like she was sipping on nothing at all, the friction between two bodies carrying no excess. An over-the-shoulder view of the darkening Hudson during an 8-mile run when it sparkled like the sweat on Ben's temples. When they ran together, he was always just out of her reach, the final shots of a movie pulling away and sweeping over a busy cityscape. There was a room locked inside of her that would not yield to her late husband, their 2 dogs, or even Carol herself. The stalls at the farmer's market did not offer anything key-shaped, not within the crates bejeweled with tender fruit, skeins of alpaca blend yarn, lavender bunches smelling of nostalgia. Instead, Carol bought scallops glistening in pearlescent half-shells, unremarkable cheeses that came in beautiful parcels, a handful of figs, an autumn squash that she tucked under her arm for the dinner that she was going to make for JD that night. JD was a cheek kiss of a guy who would bring her flowers and expensive bottles of wine. The 2 plump pomegranates in her coat pockets were for her appetites only, so that she could eat with her hands and feel each seed burst in her mouth and lick the juices off her fingers when no one was watching. She had broken up with John, another one of her admirers, earlier that day because he was a question she could not answer. I'm just not feeling the spark anymore, she told him from her side of the park bench, finishing the rest of their shared gelato. What do you mean? We just had a great time in Hawaii last month. She had made pencil sketches of the turtles that dawdled over the sand, turtles bopping in and out of the lace-edged waves that skimmed ashore. Black sand stretched out behind her in a gloaming. John watched her through half-closed eyes as she waded into the choppy waters, threatening to unmoor from the ocean's immensity. As it turns out, she had explained, gently squeezing his hand, I just don't really like snorkeling or seafood, and I'm still sunburnt from the trip. Next to them, a sparrow tittered and then took flight, carrying with her their secrets and those of other bench-bound couples as she took her southward journey. If Carol's previous engagements served as any indication, JD was going to propose to her soon, and then she would have to give up Eric in addition to John. After all, while she believed in the sanctity of marriage, she still foraged for something beyond what she already had under every glint of a look. And this endless questing had led her to JD by way of John, Eric, Eric G., a congregation of men older and younger with thinning hair or dog tattoos or dancing shoes or cabins by the lake. She meandered through the seasons alongside one companion or another, and now the whispers of winter were upon her, the first snow wafting through the air, a tickle on her cheek. She stuck out her tongue to catch a few flutters of snow. The granules tasted like nothing at all. At 16, Carol had seen snow for the first time after crawling out of her bedroom window and having an early morning smoke out of the fire escape. Now the snow drifted and accumulated in confectionery clumps, and the empty sidewalks became a clean slate, for hers were the only footsteps marking this white new world. Thank you. Next up, I'm going to introduce Anne Fryer. Anne Fryer is a writer and musician. Her stories have been selected as semifinalists in the John Gardner Memorial Prize and as a finalist in the Barry Hannah Prize in Fiction. Her writings have been published in the North Dakota Quarterly, New Plains Review, Sand Hills, Westchester Review, Southward, Miracle Monocle, 1922 Review, among others. Her compositions have been performed at the Royal Opera House, London Linbury Theatre, and toured the UK. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Hi guys, I'll be reading the first section of a prose piece that was the finalist for the Barry Hannah Prize for Fiction, and that was subsequently published in the Yellow Boucher Review. And I wrote this as part of my class at the Writer Studio. Your girl is stillborn, and you immediately make a second one in the backseat of the 2012 Toyota. The vinyl smells of paint thinner and caramel. A spider crawled into the cowl vent. Someone's singing Hit Me Baby One More Time on the radio, but it's not Britney. He stammers, he loves you, between the it's not the way I planned it, and a distant PA system saying, Noam Kuseloch is looking for his father. The man on top of you, moss-bearded, toenail-less, said the love thing twice already, and you're starting to believe him every time his forehead wipes your breasts. Your liver shifts, your kidneys float up like that fish, making space for his ambitions, how they made space for her. Someone's coming, you say, though you hear no one, and push him off to yank at your skirt and stroke the corduroy. Naive to the touch, fabric that's only just arrived in his world. You fold forwards and rub your face against it. It's freezing, he says, unsure of what else to say, rearranges himself by unclenching the teeth and climbs back into the driver's seat. The hood glistens for icicles. You want some dinner? He asks. The fledgling blue in his eyes a stutter. But you just want to sit here in the King Soopers parking lot and watch the people slide on frozen asphalt and snow. The white is hiding all the uglies. I love winter, you say, and wrap in a faux fur coat with the milk stains on the inside and a fist-sized rip along the satin lining. He starts the car. Later with the food, you say, signaling him to kill the engine and stick all 10 fingers in your mouth. For the heat, he presses his palm to vent. And just then a cry lodges in your throat because you realize that now the spider's trapped in Inferno. Things die in confined spaces. There's nothing cozy about a vent or a womb. Bet ya he's gonna fall. He's pointing to men in a silver puffer coat waddling along a row of vehicles balancing 2 paperbacks. Not that one, you whisper to the window, and it returns a splotch of fog shaped like a penguin. Silver Guy is side to side and back and forth, arms clutching back so they could balance him. A candy wrapper bullied by a breeze. You sense his agony, wanting to free his arms to steady a fall. His car glints in the distance, mocking him. Snow tires, baby. He stares at it like it's salvation. Behind him, a woman speeding, reckless with her fate. Her steps slap the glassy surface as she gains on him. She holds her head back for levelness. Her breath's an air bridge between them. Her strides too certain for the uncertainty of ice. A misstep is a minor thing. Now her foot skids and her arms flail. You hold your breath. Don't take him with you, you whisper. She's down, limbs splayed, one back burst open, apples, bread, a can of soup, pasta, a head of lettuce, a cucumber, a pack of batteries, coffee beans, 2 bars of soap, onions, a single sock, a toy dinosaur, a teething ring. Silver doesn't turn. His gaze holds steady on her head. You wonder if he even heard her go. Her arms reaching for the sky, you're reminded of the fat black beetles falling from the kitchen shelf in summer. They're always landing on their backs. You'll take a pencil to them, scoop them back onto their feet. You open the door. The chill chews through your leggings as you walk. When you lie down beside her, your hip finds the spot where the ice is thinnest. Above the sky is a surgical gown. Mossbeard's voice floats from the Toyota. Hun, what you doing? Come back! The woman doesn't protest as you gather her groceries and start rearranging them. The can is heavier than a head should be, a sock for a neck, the pasta box for ribs and batteries for bones, cucumber for an arm, that fucking teething ring like a hospital bracelet. You built what you couldn't keep. Thank you, guys.
Jonathan Vernick lives in Marin County, California. He has participated in the Writers Studio San Francisco since 2017. He is a student in the master class. Jonathan, please go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. This is a prose piece called Shooting the Moon. It's the beginning of a story. Shooting the Moon. There are two kinds of gamblers: professionals who always win and say it was never about the money, and amateurs who always lose and say it was never about the money. But for them, it was always about the money. Losers are called punters and pikers, sharpers and hooples, sprinklers and slot zombies, dicers and deal rats, degenerates, perverts, and 100 other names for the ones who live in the shadows of their lives, hiding out, dreaming that they will be made whole or redeemed or victorious. They're in a hurry. They pounce, they plunge, they dive, they sweat, they smoke cigarettes until they taste like burnt rubber, and order drinks until their throats catch fire. They are always angry. They have always been angry. They don't know why. Something happened. Maybe the dog got hit by a car, or maybe they never had a dog, and that was the problem. Or maybe the parents got divorced when they were 7, or maybe they didn't, and that was the problem. Or maybe they got bounced on the head and never spoke a word till 3, and when they did, the words shot out like scrambled eggs from a cannon, and that was the problem. Or maybe they were a genius and graduated high school at 12 but loved drugs more than the square root of infinity, and that was the problem. Maybe nothing happened. Maybe they were born good, married good, had the good job and good kids, but lost it all, betting on cliches, nags and with names like Victory or King, or numbers like Lucky 7 at the wheel. Some gamblers are family men, with the wife, the kid, the family dog, the diabetic cat, and a second mortgage that never forgets. I grew up with certain traditions, customs, and rituals. My mother lights the Sabbath candles at sunset on Fridays. God is not a player in our house, but cultural affiliation runs deep, and the past looms large. That is her ritual. She will broil and burn chicken also on Fridays. That is her custom. The family eats breakfast together on Sundays. The 5 of us, sister, brother, and parents, crowded around a gray Formica kitchen table the size of a hat, with a dozen bagels, freshly packed pints of cream cheese, orange juice, and a microscopic piece of lox like a man standing with his pockets turned inside out. That is our tradition. On Sunday mornings during football season, my father retrieves the newspapers, the New York Times for reading and the New Jersey Sentinel for the games and the point spread. He scribbles notes on scrap paper, circling the names and numbers and the Vegas line, favorites, odds, and TDs. That is his ritual part 1. Standing at a lean 6 feet with dark hair, darker eyebrows, and a sonorous voice, he is the epitome of the well-matched man, commanding and confident. He is not a yeller. Should he become angry, which is rare, his voice sinks to the floor and slowly crawls towards its intended recipient, shaking in the corner. He is otherwise gentle and aloof. He is preoccupied. I recall watching him after dinner, staring at a space in the kitchen, trying to understand how he could fix his unblinking eyes for so long on something that was not there. He tries to engage with us, inquiring about our lives, but the conversation inevitably trails off. He wishes it were easier, that it didn't simply feel obligatory and unnatural. He cannot relate. In his time, children were like ants, underfoot and in the way. They rolled in the sun and in the shadows like lost pennies, hoping to be discovered. When at last they met up with their parents as adults, they had nothing to say to each other. My father calls his bookie Danny after breakfast. He uses the black push-button phone placed on a narrow wall between the pantry and refrigerator in the middle of the kitchen. It's like calling from Times Square on New Year's Eve. That is his ritual part 2. Any one of us could be in the room at precisely that time, but know enough to be quiet while he terses words. The Jets give 3, Pittsburgh with 10, Giants as is, until he's placed half a dozen bets or more and hangs up. If my mother is in the kitchen with one of us, she will offer a conspiratorial nod. That is their custom. They become one in their suspension of disbelief, the hope that the magic will be visited upon them like a meteor hurling from space, set in motion before they were born. This would be their moment, when all the wrongs would be righted, their suffering relieved, their love certified, their promise chiseled in stone, the green light at the end of Gatsby's Pier captured with a butterfly net. My father will win and will lose. There is no celebrations, no jackpot, no conversation. There will be nothing. That is their tradition, leaving us with the cold fire. Maybe when he won, he didn't win enough, or maybe when he lost big and had to keep it to himself. Maybe that's when he would stare at the space past the kitchen table like it was a portal at the center of the universe, where he could be restored as the winner he knew himself to be. But if you asked him, he'd tell you that he never believed in that shit anyway. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Lorrie Smith. She lives on Monterey Bay and writes short fiction, poetry, and screenplays. She was a staff scientist at the NIH and is currently an editor of scientific journal manuscripts. She has a PhD in computational sciences and informatics from George Mason University. Lorrie, go ahead and read.
Thanks. I'm going to be reading some pages from a short story called Escapade. A girl's wisdom about boys is often won the hard way, by a series of painful events nudging her back to herself. If she is lucky, these events are not fatal. She will learn to see and avoid them. But how can she avoid a danger unseen, even as it touches her? Nan, Bethany, and Trina break out of the wary London House Hotel at 11:05 p.m., inhaling the fog covering the boundless going the wrong way street. Nan cheers the miracle drug that finally fixed her horrible acne. All she wants is to lay her rosy new face on some Brit boy's peach smoothie chest. Bethany walks on her tiptoes, trying to be as tall as Trina. Trina is model high without heels. She only wears heels when she wants to be a warrior queen. Miss Trueberry, the blue-eyed, crepe-faced British lit teacher who planned this high school graduation trip, is off to bed, after stuffing her face with shortbread because it's the perfect snack, you know, for the local area. If she mentions that one more time, Bethany says, her lion nose twitching. She looks like a lion because of the fold in her upper lip, the other girls say, but only to each other. Her naturally wavy hair is unabashedly, gloriously lionesque. As long as the sugar high puts her to sleep, Trina laughs, but will it? Get back! Trina grabs Nan as a black cab whizzes by inches from Nan. Nan gasps, her 3-inch long rhinestone Hello Kitty earring swaying. What a close call it was. You could have been killed. Didn't you see him? Trina yells. How can I see him if I don't know where to look? It's not my fault they're all driving on the wrong side of the road. Thanks for stopping, asshat. Bethany tosses her dirty blonde mane, annoyed. Trina hikes up her tight plaid skirt and fires a gold goddess heel to the curb. 3 cabs screech in approval. The girls tumble into one, squealing and fighting for the window seats. Move, Nan giggles. She yanks Trina out of the left window seat. Can't sit in the middle, my legs are too long. Trina pounces for the right window. She body slams it and shuts the door. Door closed means seats chosen for the win. You've dented my new docs in the door. Bethany is not amused. The girls grab whatever they can to hang on to as the cab takes off. This driver knows just where to drop off these Larry American Muppets. They tumble out of the car, high on smile beams and hopeful hearts. Miss Trueberry's wavy voice droning on about Poplar, Blackwall, East India, East Ham, and All Saints after sunset, far behind them. They strut down Barking Road, magnetizing men out from every corner shop and pub. They leave the first pub for dead, with its hunched 30-year-old spindles of regret pining for another one. The second pub bounces to life, its colored lights flickering on a tiny dance floor, outdated maybe, but fun as hell when you've a pint in you. Why could I kiss the next boy I see? Nan's bell chime voice tickles the worn cobblestones on the street awake as they leave the pub. Kiss too when you have a deal, Bethany dares. At the same time, Trina giggles. Nan's shiny pink pimple-free face attaches itself to a white boy with dreadlocks. Trina experiments with optimal cleavage deployment. More? Still more? Oh yeah, boom, you dead. Even Bethany abandons herself to the free-falling moon. Yes, she says to a skinny lad asking where they're from. He's not that cute, and neither is she, not like Trina, but the knight hasn't caught on to that yet. He lifts his arm high and drivels starry ale, or is it lager? Can't just be beer, not here, from a bottle into his misshapen mouth. She pounces. Together, they arch their backs across the sky, gulping the amber elixir before it hits the pockmarked pavement. She hears Nan calling for a cab already. What time is it? She feels an extra arm around her waist. It's Trina and her million gold bangles. He's stopped pouring magic, frozen in stupid stare at Trina. He touches the bottle to Trina's cherries in the snow lips. She only wears this shade when she wants to assemble and conquer. You know what I was thinking? He kisses Trina's hair. I was thinking I might help myself to one night of your life. Trina takes a polite sip from his bottle before hurling it at the ornate ivory archway over his head. It shatters, sharp shards nearly studding his ruddy scalp. He runs off, ugly cursing. The girls grab Nan off her dreadlocks boy and fades into a crowd of East Ham cab flaggers. Nan twirls her Hello Kitty earring, searching the crowd for the most beautiful dreadlocks in London, no, the world, before giving up. At least that kiss happened. It really happened. Not everything has to lead to something. Bethany notes that the ratio of cabs to pub leavers is dwindling, some might say dangerously given the hour. A forest green Euromobile pulls up to Trina, and a grizzled female driver yells, "Open, lovelies, can't have you standing round like mincemeats at closing." They fall over themselves into the cramped car, so ready for this night to be over. They wake up on the Thames River. It rushes across their bleary eyes, dousing them with deceit. Their money is gone. Now I'd like to introduce our next writer. Paula Garber lives in Ossining, New York, and has participated in writer studio classes since 2024. She works as a freelance writer and editor and holds a BA in English from SUNY Albany and a master's degree in education from the University of Colorado at Boulder. She is writing her first novel. Paula, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. I'll be reading 3 poems tonight. The first one is called The Forgotten. Disheveled from human neglect, invisible to those responsible, they huddle near waste bins in the crushing cold or heat, crouched, trembling, claws gripping greasy pavement, ready to bolt both young and old, with skin shrinking around eyes and hip bones, waiting for a reprieve, a morsel, a kind word, a soft bed, release from pain. They appear in dank alleys, apartment complex courtyards, community parks, and overgrown parking lots on moving day, after babies are born, when landlords say no and puppies are gifted on 10th birthdays. There's always an obscenity, or at least a projectile hurled, a rock, a beer bottle, the dismay of worn-out apathy, a useless limb dragged in the muck, a loose dog, a wound soon infected, trash, a lot of trash, too much want, too much waste, and always that conflicted crouch, as if clinging to another better chance to have a new homecoming day, be a little girl's everything, sleep soundly, feel safe. Alas, new wants break promises every day. Shaking the morning dew from their fur, they dart through yards and over fences toward another day of uncertainty, a future of forgottenness, still wearing collars with bells. My next poem is called One Night. Standing there, you had that sorry, satisfied look the stray dog had when he sat at the door with furrowed brow and lolling tongue, begging to be let out, like I'd tried to put a collar and leash around his neck and tie him to my bedpost. Trust had come so quickly, I thought I must possess some cosmic magic that compelled the hungry pup to abandon the torn trash bags and limp up the stairs into my apartment, curl into a ball on the easy chair, and fall into deep sleep like it had been days. He gobbled down my dinner and gazed at me with sad amber eyes that knew I had more to offer. And with our bodies pressed together, I traced his nicks and scars into a constellation of stories about his life outside that only I could understand, our breaths in sync as I hugged his smooth head to my chest and soothed with kind words and gentle strokes of his black fur when he dream barked at infernal demons and his legs tried to run, not knowing he was already safe. When you pulled your body away and placed your hand on the doorknob, that's what I saw. A man like the others, afraid to stop running and be free with me. My last poem is called Bending Hectic. I tapped my fingers in time with the slow, cascading notes on repeat, but when the notes quickened, my fingers couldn't keep up. And when plucked tones took over and climbed to a crescendo, I didn't want to move at all. Once at a Radiohead concert, I waved at Tom York on stage from behind 6 rows of bodies. His crooked gaze settled on me for a verse as he sang and strummed his guitar. A guy behind me said to his friend, "Did you see that? He looked at that girl." But only I saw the moth in the shape of a girl flutter into the vibration gap and suck the song out of the air, and my closely held grievances disappear into the crowd. When the show was over and rain poured down, the moth swirled in a puddle in the parking lot, blurred words covering her transparent wings. The water washed away the words, and they landed on my skin and in my hair, and tiny ripples lapped at my ears. And then I sank below the surface. Thank you. The next writer to read is Jennifer Elle. Jennifer, she, her, is an emerging creative writer and activist. She has worked for international NGOs around the globe on issues surrounding gender, sexual identity, and body politics. As a young adult, she was a performing artist in Broadway shows. Now she is a mother to 2 young sons and is raising them with feminist ideals, while also trying to complete her first full-length work of creative nonfiction. Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This is an outtake from my full-length work, which is a feminist coming-of-age story disguised as a travel memoir, which also happens to address sexual assault. This section is written looking back through the lens of my very recent miscarriage. This is the B-Sides, New Jersey. It is awkward getting my butt evenly placed on the canvas. I must crab walk myself from the tray of paint across the newspapers that haphazardly cover the white floor tiles, over the magazine clippings of models in exotic locations, and onto my canvas, which is nothing more than a few sheets of watercolor paper duct taped together at the back. In the process, the paint drips onto another article about the Oklahoma City bombing. Just reading about that woman trapped in the rubble who had to cut off her own leg has haunted me for weeks, or maybe months. While my heels and palms shuffle around my own fallout debris, I must be extremely careful not to slide these papers too much, which might topple the patchouli-scented candle that's precariously balanced on top of a pile of teen magazine. I need the flame to melt the crayons in case I don't have enough menstrual blood. Once I position my naked body in the center of the canvas, I let myself fall. Success, I whisper, and do a little fist pump. I look back out over my destroyed landscape to see that I've gotten much more paint than I'd realized in the white grout and on the white wall tiles. Evidence. I look down at my own body, at the breasts that I hate. I'm glad they are painted gray and purple. I crab walk to the other side, then roll over. When I get up, I realize I've inadvertently splotched some boob paint on President Clinton. Oops. So sorry, Mr. President. I still need him to honor and protect the remaining floor tiles, so I reach for a copy of 17 magazine, my then age, to wipe away the excess. I smear someplace between quiz, kissing, are you doing it right? I'll cannibalize this magazine further for my next installation, but for now, it goes back on the floor next to National Geographic. Wow. It came out better than I'd envisioned, although the imprint of my backside looks bigger than the backside itself, and I wonder if all of that is really me. Regardless, it's a roaring success. I've even captured the long pubes and leg hair that I've been proudly growing out for a few months. But the center, where my vulva is supposed to be, is only negative space. I was hoping to cover up the Elmer's glued-on photograph of my first love, Julian. But no vulva imprint has veiled it. I can still see his blonde surfer hair and gorgeous face. There is still a part of me that thinks everything is going to work out, that Julian in Oxford will realize his mistake in dumping me 6 months after my father died, and miraculously appear in my bedroom in New Jersey. I'd lost my virginity to him 6 months before my father died. A confluence of events that leaves me feeling I'm to blame. For what? For everything. Fuck. I need to cover up that photograph. Seeing his face will continue to lead me down a path of grief from which I shall never return. I've already cried for months, listening to Enya and thinking I would drown in my bed. He's not coming back. I'm unsure who I mean by he. They never come back. If the canvas cannot go to the vulva, I decide, then the vulva must go to the canvas. This photograph is getting covered up tonight, be it by menstrual blood, melted crayon, or paint. I start with the blood. I pull out my tampon while standing over the canvas, hoping a few clotty drops will fall out. Nope. I take the tampon and smear it across, the faintest veil of pink. Meh. I reach into me, pushing my middle and pointer finger up, hoping I can get something. No luck. I cannot force my female body to do what it cannot. I open the pack of crayons. I take out the deepest, darkest red. I unpeel the paper wrapper with its wavy horizon line of black. I grab the candle, a waft of patchouli. The flame grows higher. I place the crayon in the candle. It screams out in pheromones of wax and clay. I drip the crayon over the photo. After a few drops, I'm satisfied. I extinguish both, and the room is engulfed in a plume of smoke, as if I'd ceremonially smudged it with the herbs and flowers I burn. I pause. Relief. I wash my hands in the pedestal sink and see my reflection in the leaded glass mirror of the medicine cabinet. There are my big green eyes. Only one freckle into life. My father's at 46 were identical, but with lots of freckles. There are my bony arms, my visible ribs, my muscular abs. There is my long, dirty blonde hair. There is my pierced belly button, still healing in red, still a sore spot with my mother, the result of a trip to Washington Square Park and a few lies. There is my long dancer's neck and prominent collarbone, a feature which will later be buried in flesh, perhaps to be excavated by an enterprising archaeologist, like the partial remains of an Iron Age maiden. There is me, covered in blotches of grief. Thank you. Now, our next reader Mary Wolfe lives in Tucson, Arizona. She has participated in writer's studio classes since 2023. She also paints watercolors and volunteers at the UNICEF store in Tucson. Mary, go ahead and unmute.
Howdy from Tucson. I would like to read 3 poems for you. The first one is called Pierce Ferry, and Pierce Ferry was a ferry built on Lake Mead by Mormon settlers, and it's now an abandoned spot. Pierce Ferry. Cousin Brian, your mom died yesterday. I thought of you. I wondered if her last thoughts were of you, of your missing body. Cousin, you drove past my rental on the way to your apparent suicide. At the time, I didn't know you lived in Arizona. You lived in the Mojave. You lived one town over from where I had retreated to mend my life. Someone found your car and your dog abandoned at Pierce Ferry all those years ago, that place itself abandoned at the edge of sinking Lake Mead. Hikers and boaters searched for you, helicopter pilots too, the brush impassable in places and the lake dark, opaque. No trace but your dog's footprints. Maybe your bones will surface as the water goes lower and lower, like the Vegas murder victim found in a barrel in the mud. They caught your dog. One of the hikers adopted it. Cousin, I only knew my pain, not yours. I moved to Dolan Springs to get away from the deceptions of LA, to get away from a husband who smiled while he hurt me. I needed the honesty of nature, ravens who skimmed my hair from curiosity, jackrabbits who ran to my backyard for oatmeal and pans of ice, rattlers who sunbathed wherever they damn well pleased. Your sister said you were depressed by a divorce. In the picture in the paper, you sat on a rundown porch, hands tight over your knees, skinny and fretful like all of us, like all our family. We are all like that, with different ways to hang on. After you disappeared, your mom went to Mass every day. I drove to Pierce Ferry too, many times, down the hill, the long dirt road. I sat on a rock and cried about my marriage, about being sick and alone, my throat raw from wailing, until I was empty and quiet. Changing light on vermilion cliffs across the water, rustles of small life in the grass, arcing flights of birds helped me recover. In a year, I moved to a city, back to people, back to a stronger self. Dear cousin, we could have gone together to Pierce Ferry, lain on the slanted concrete, submerged our feet, watched ospreys crash into the water, then reappear, talked about the drowned native villages, the drowned wooden ferry below us, stories washed away. We could have cried with each other. Maybe our tears would have smoothed the edges of our pain, like rounded rocks at lakeside, shaped through years of moving water. Those rocks are perfect to build a walking path. The next poem is called Rattlesnake Land. Strike first, my landlady believes, even with rattlesnakes. She half severs the head of one with a hoe, leaves the snake to squirm in pain. She calls me over. Kill it for me, John. I use a shovel. Did that snake sin by crossing her yard or by just existing? We live in the open desert for God's sake, or for Satan's sake, if that deity protects the least of us, those who crawl instead of walk over everything. She lets me park my trailer on her land for a pittance, but not without a price. I am not as hard as rocks etched with petroglyphs, cactus spines under the skin, words in her family Bible. Would you lecture her about her fear? Ask why the mercy she shows me doesn't rain on the lowly snake, slithering through this hellscape before us and likely long after we burn? O devil, O feathered serpent, keep your children from crossing paths with the terrified righteous. Accept this sacrifice that I carry deep into the saguaros upon this shovel. May it nourish another animal that ekes out an existence. Here is my piece of heart offering. Amazon sells poles to catch snakes, buckets with lids. I will ferry my brothers across washes of dust to give them a 50-50 chance at new life. And my name is Juan. Next poem is called Old Fruit. Grandma went from family to family, taking up the guest room. In her suitcase, brown spotted pears, she offered them like a prized treat. My siblings and I chucked the fruit behind the barn, avoided the intruder in horn rims and dark dresses, her speech slow and embarrassing. Dis, dat, dees, dem. Grandma finally accepted no one would keep her, not even her favorite son. He had finagled the farm away from her for a handshake. I seldom visited her in the nursing home. Dad said at the last all she ate was strawberries. I wish I had held that tough little hand and listened. 9 children, a guiding husband who died too young. I could have dried her tears of old age and abandonment, but I was still green and hard. Next up is Chris Seaborne. Chris lives and writes by the sea in San Francisco. His stories have appeared or are forthcoming in New Orleans Review, December, Puerto del Sol, and Blue Earth Review. Take it away, Chris. Go ahead and unmute.
Thanks, Mary. This is the first half or so of a story called Miss Ruby. We worked plenty of trees that year. They were coming down all over. Maples in the schoolyards and parks, 6 different willows on the same road with the old folks worrying what a 7th might mean. An elm fell and cut a trailer in half like God with his butter knife. Me and Greg sawed them down into sizes we could move and loaded them into the back of the truck, then hauled the pieces out to a lonesome forester who still operated a civilian sawmill. Every time we saw an uprooted tree, I'd wonder how old it must have been and start speculating over how it had been there before anyone I'd ever known had been born, probably longer than the town itself had been there, and all the things it must have seen. Now it was dead. I wouldn't shut up about it. Greg got fed up after a while. He told me to quit it with the spooky talk. I even went to the library and took out a book on the lives of trees. Turns out maples live for about 70 years and willows just 50. I was disappointed. I wanted to believe that I was witnessing the fall of ancient things, all them trees coming down, a comfort to think that I lived at the end of something. It made sense of things that otherwise didn't make a whole lot of sense. Towards the end of the season, a big oak came down in Calvary Cemetery. Now, oaks are old, or at least they can be. I told Greg between the whines of our chainsaws. Thousands of years even. This here oak could be older than Jesus, I said. Greg just shook his head. It was slow work with a tree that big. We could hardly lift more than a sliver of it at a time and had an argument over whether we should spend the effort to split the logs lengthwise. The oak had smashed a bunch of gravestones when it came down. We tried to group the broken pieces together in case the stones could be rebuilt later, if that was possible. We weren't sure if it was. Around noon, we sat on the top of a picnic table with our boots on the bench and ate our sandwiches. They were made by Greg's grandmother. Whenever I showed up at Greg's door in the morning, Miss Ruby always packed us 2 thick sandwiches. She wrote a G for Greg on one of the foil wrap parcels and an N for Nick on the other. Sometimes there were completely different kinds of sandwiches, and over break we'd ponder what that meant about us. Though at this time we both had ham and cheese. It was quieter than our munching. We looked around the cemetery with its little lanes and rows of stones with flowers and American flags and so on. A couple of old oaks still stood. Real pretty, said Greg. I agreed. The lanes were cut sharp and the bushes trimmed. Everything was clean and peaceful. You could tell somebody had put their heart into it. After a while, we heard the sound of an engine starting. A dinky cat excavator trundled down the lane towards us. It turned off into a flat grassy area and stopped. The arm came down and started digging. I guess he's digging somebody their new sleeping place, I said. Greg turned his head and spat. Don't seem right, he said. Dying? Nah, that cat. I figure if somebody gonna bury me, they should use a shovel. Sweat a little. We watched the digging. The bucket dumped the fresh soil on a pile beside it. I could barely see the man inside, just the glint of his sunglasses and the red and white of his plaid shirt. He raised a hand and waved. Me and Greg waved back. We didn't want to get back to work and dallied at eating the last bites of our sandwiches. My grandpa used to call the place you go when you die Happy Hunting Ground, I said. What do you hunt there? Beats me. I always imagined there were foxes and deer running around, but you didn't hunt them. You just kind of walked around the grounds with them and the people you loved who were dead. Greg hopped off the picnic table and brushed his pants. Tree ain't gonna cut itself, he muttered. I kept watching the cat dig. It had a delicate touch. I didn't mind the engine sounds. It was like a cloud of bees. Then the man inside fell out. He hit the ground and lay there. Greg, I said. Greg had seen it too. He put his hand over his eyes like a visor that the sun was behind us. We started running, cutting across the flowers and gravestones. Greg slowed down so we reached the man who had fallen out of the cat at the same time. He sat slumped on his side with half his face pressed to the dirt. I took his shoulders and rolled him into a sitting position against the tread of the vehicle. Greg climbed up and turned the key in the ignition. We looked at the man. His eyes were open, but the left one was slack. His right boot was kicking at the grass. Hey, mister, you doing all right? I asked. His hair was pomaded back, but a look of it came down over his forehead. He looked to be in his 50s, maybe older if his black hair was colored. Your neck ain't broke, so I think you're going to be all right, I said. He clenched and unclenched his right fist. His lips were moving like he was trying to talk. All that came out was croaking. I think he had a stroke, said Greg. Give him a minute. Maybe he's just stunned from that fall. The man wheezed and croaked. Greg looked at me and he kept looking. I'll call the ambulance, I said. I took my phone out of my pocket. The man moaned. The moan turned to a hiss that raised the hair on the back of our necks. The boot that was scraping the grass shot out and almost knocked the phone out of my hand. Nick, he don't want you to call. I can see that, but why? Maybe he don't like doctors. That ain't a reason not to call one. The man rolled his good eye. His shoulders shook. He didn't shake his head exactly, but I got the idea he wanted to. I don't think it's about doctors, Greg, I said. Maybe he don't have the insurance, Greg said. As soon as he said it, we both figured it must be true. The man tried to sort of hook the shoulder on his good side, like he wanted to swing his elbow and then do something or other with his hand. We just watched. After a few swings, his dead hand slapped at the front pocket of his plaid shirt. I reached into the pocket and pulled out a little white card with a handwritten phone number and address on it. I'll be damned, said Greg. I guess it don't hurt to call this number first, I said. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That was wonderful. All right, I'm going to introduce our last reader for the afternoon. Welcome to Katie. Katie Predrick is a poet and ecologist living in Tucson, Arizona, where the Sonoran Desert landscape inspires both her work and writing. She began writer studio courses in the Tucson branch and is currently a student in advanced poetry. Katie, please go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. I'm going to be reading 3 poems today. The first one is called A Plan to Survive the Apocalypse. I wear a shirt that says, "This is my costume," to my coworker's Halloween party, where I meet a divorce lawyer dressed as the bride of Frankenstein. While we play foosball, she tells me every couple is really just having one fight over and over. I told her my parents fought about who to invite into our bunker. And this seemed totally normal to me until 1st grade, when I went to Jenny's birthday party and her family didn't even have a bunker, just a precise expanse of lush lawn. My mom wanted to ask the guy who worked nights at Circle K because he spoke Spanish and once scared a robber away with just a windshield scraper. And also Cheyenne, who served twice in Afghanistan. My mom figured anyone who can defuse an IED can probably make one too. My dad wanted to ask my flute teacher because she also played guitar and had a decent singing voice. They agreed on Mike, our local mechanic, who could repair almost anything. My dad thought everyone should get a +1, like a wedding. He even wrote to Emily Post to ask about the etiquette, but they never ran his letter. My mom thought everyone should need a ticket except lap children, like on an airplane. When I moved to Bismarck, they gave my spot to our neighbor, Irene, who built her own barn. My mom said, "Just think of her as a daughter understudy. Of course, you'd be a real asset if you go to medical school." And for a hot second, I thought that was possible. because everything seems possible when you're expecting super volcanoes or nuclear war. But everything also seems pointless when the world is ending. So why not drop out of college and day drink and do Molly in the Denny's bathroom before your night shift? The Bride of Frankenstein laughs and asks, who got custody of the bunker in their divorce? She is handily beating me at foosball, and I clearly don't have the skill to win. Still, I'd like to score. So I change tactics and frantically spin the rigid rows of plastic men, praying one of them will connect with the ball. My second poem is called My Mother is Told She Has Months to Live. I recall the starched, stark lighting and the doctor who never sat down. I turned sideways in a Naugahyde chair, my mother crunching ice from the bed next to me, when he showed us the storm of white flecks on her brain CT. And I was desperate to leave, be anywhere but that hospital room. I've been a terrible daughter in many ways, forged signatures and filched $5 bills, late nights at the library and never practicing the piano, refusing a scholarship to a state school and moving across the country. The doctor is listing potential symptoms with the detached nonchalance of an Applebee's waiter listing salad dressings. Vertigo and hallucinations, paralysis and seizures, loss of bladder control. Once we're alone with the beeping monitors, we are both silent. Neither of us know how to give or receive comfort. Still, I wish, in that moment, when so much changed, I had crossed the space between us, clambered into her hospital bed, our heads sharing the same plastic-coated pillow, allowing our bodies to fill the silence. My third poem is called Bike Ride in Autumn. Autumn finally arrived this week, and the river sunk underground. I'm biking along the river trail, and my back is hot in the sun while my face is chilled by the wind. And this is what I expect of autumn, a chimera built from the worst parts of summer and winter. We always call it a river, even though the flow hibernates like a snake through the cooler months. So now I'm just pedaling along a wide strip of sand speckled with shrubby trees. Desert river trees stay green all year. Their roots find water, even while it's hidden. Outside the channel, I passed mesquite trees with dying leaves, ocotillos turned blazing red, and flowering desert broom flocked with butterflies. What I'm saying is, desert autumns are complicated, more pandemonium than preparation. Autumn is when everything seems to happen. The morning my second daughter was born, the afternoon I threw up outside the office of the doctor who said, autoimmune diseases are mysterious and that he couldn't help me. The chill night I caught the last streetcar home with a new favorite contact in my phone. I can bike almost any day now, thanks to a doctor who is brilliant and a little bit daring, and handfuls of pills. Small pink ones, long yellow ones, disc-shaped blue ones, and the best ones, plump white and bitter because they dissolve so fast. I started dreaming again after taking those white ones, night after night, pulling tall books from shelves cluttered close together in the back of a library. I'd open a book and watch all the words slide down the page to form a black jumble at the bottom. Sometimes I'd tip the spine to my lips and drink the whole book in one long pull. Other nights, all the words would sprinkle to the floor as soot. I'm still learning how to find insight in disorder. I turn away from the river to bike home, still sweating in the sun and shivering in the windy shade. And I wish I had more of autumn's tenacity. I'm not asking for permission to be tumultuous or unpredictable, though I am those things. I just mean I want to shine through the cold wind. I want to be a river, even when I'm underground. Thank you.
Katie, thank you so much. That was beautiful. We are at the end of our reading. Thank you so much to all of the writers who were here with us today. I'm going to bring everyone to the camera, if I can do this correctly. And then we can go ahead and give one another a round of applause. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Francesca, for doing all of this. Thank you. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you to Gil and Jonathan and Mary and Chris and Amanda and Anne and Katie and Paula and Jennifer and Lorrie. Thank you to all the audience members that joined us today. Writers, I hope you're reading in your comments what everyone is sending as feedback to you for all your great work. Thank you for being such a source of inspiration to all of us listening today.